welcome to the Nightly Talk with your host, Nicholas. Alright folks, we're going to touch on a number of subjects tonight. The number one we're going to touch on first, though, is going to be that record number of Americans are quitting their jobs. 4.3 million, a record high in August, quit their job. It's about 2.9% of the workforce in August, up from 2.7% in July. That's according to the JOLTS Job Opening and Labor Turnover Survey report released Tuesday. Now that's the highest rate since 2000. That's an astounding 242,000 workers who quit, demanding higher pay and better work conditions and more flexible work arrangements. Those industries that were affected the most: food service, accommodation, wholesale trade, state and local government education. Now the issue here is an abundance of jobs. So we're seeing people vote with their feet. Companies continue to struggle with this worker shortage as job openings stay steady around 10.4 million. That's what according to the JOLTS report. The problem is going to arise out of the fact that right now people don't realize that yes, there is an overabundance of jobs, but as these companies increase wages and workers continue to job hop, these companies are going to stop hiring and replace workers with automation, kiosks, etc. Don't be surprised when you start seeing drive-up kiosks and no counter people in your restaurants. Look at Walmart and big box stores with the self-checkout. I mean, automation doesn't get a check, a break, doesn't need insurance. So what's the need for the real person? Especially when they're demanding higher wage for jobs that don't require any skill set. It's going to become a lot harder to get a job, and this may continue and this whole job abundance may continue for the next 6 months to a year. But steadily you're going to start to see companies that have already become more picky with who they hire. It's going to get worse. So they're going to stop hiring people who continue to job hop and demand this ridiculous $15, $16, $17 an hour. I mean, these companies are in business to make money. Restaurants, big box stores, etc. And the more they have to pay these workers an hour, the more they have to pass that cost on to the consumer. Me, you, whoever. And I don't think that these workers really understand the reasoning behind the wage gap with no skill set versus skill set. You know, the companies that hire people with skill sets charge a premium for their services because they have these people with a skill set that the work they do is at a premium. So when you see these people come in and they're trying to get hired at McDonald's or Wendy's or Walmart at $15 and $16 an hour, right now they've kind of got a foothold on these companies saying, you know, if you don't hire us at this wage, we're not going to work for you. And then we're coming into the holiday season, so these companies are kind of giving in, but you're going to start to see a hole out in January, February, March, when these companies are really trying to get a handle on how do we pay somebody $15 an hour and still make money. And you know, with the way our technology is now, don't be surprised when that drive-through person no longer answers you, and you see it already. So when you roll up to a McDonald's speaker to order in McDonald's drive-through, you're automatically greeted by an automation that says, "Welcome to McDonald's. You know, how can I help you? You know, or what can I get for you today?" And and so they're already taking that next step. If you go into any McDonald's, if you visit some of these other restaurants, you're seeing people not be present and you're seeing more kiosks. So it's been happening over the last few years. These companies have realized that the demand for wages is going to continue. And right now they've kind of got a foothold, like I said, on these companies with you know what they're able to pay and what they're not going to pay. and they've kind of got them over a barrel here, so they're paying this wage. But what you're going to see is these companies are going to hire less people at that higher wage, and they're going to implement automation. At if you take a look at any kitchen in any restaurant, you've got about 4 or 5 positions that are the main key positions that make that restaurant operate. So you've got the flow of food starts at, obviously the grill, and then you've got a middle person or a dress person, and then you've got a drive-through person, and then you've got a counter person. And that's how the flow of food works. So you make the order, and that order is sent back to the grill screen, and then that grill guy cooks that food up and sends it down to the dress person, who plates it, wraps it, bags it, dresses it, whatever, sends it down to the counter person, who hands it out. And that's how the flow of food works, and in turn collects your money. So you're going to see that go away, and it's going to happen. You're going to see these companies. Don't be surprised in the next year that when you pull up to a McDonald's, you order at a kiosk screen. You're going to make your selections on a touch screen, and pay there for credit card, or pay at the window with cash. Don't be surprised. So places like McDonald's will go from having 2 people working in the drive-thru down to 1 person who will collect your cash and hand you your food. It's going to happen, because these companies are, the more they have to pay the worker, the more they have to pass that cost down to you and me. And you've already seen it at Walmart with self-checkout, and you've seen it at Kroger's with self-checkout, and these big box chains with these self-checkouts, and everybody's complaining, well, I'm going to go to the cashier because I don't get paid to check out my own groceries. And you're right, you don't. But in turn, do you want to pay $10 for a gallon of milk, or do you want to pay $5 for a gallon of milk? And that's where this higher wage is going to come in. And there's no real rule here to stop people to keep pushing it more and more and more. So after 15, what's next? $20 an hour to work the front counter at McDonald's? I mean, that person has no skill set when they come into that job. And the people who there's 2 ways they can go with that. So they can come in as a counter person, make a minimum wage for a minimum skill set, and continue to learn some transferable skills, and either create a career in the food industry, or take those transferable skills with them to another job and apply for other jobs that better suit them, or attend school. There's that third option. They can attend school, get a degree, and then make that higher wage that they've earned, that they went and got an education for. So to continue to push this $15 an hour, and then to what, $20 an hour, to the point where when you and your wife or your girlfriend or husband or boyfriend, vice versa, go out and order 2 burgers and 2 fries and 2 drinks from a Wendy's or McDonald's or whatever, and it costs you $40 for 2 meals, at what point do you say that's too much, and then you stop visiting these restaurants? Or when you go to Walmart and you buy this gallon of milk for $10 instead of, a year ago it was $5. At what point do you say enough is enough? And that's what these companies are going to do. You're going to see this really happen. It's an unfortunate consequence of continuous raising of wages. So the minimum wage right now where I'm at is around $11 an hour. Minimum wage is meant for people with minimum skills, or a minimum skill set. And I got to be careful here because I don't want to really offend anybody, but when you go into the workforce and it's your first job, or when somebody looks at your application and you've had 3 jobs in the last 6 months, what makes them want to pay you that higher wage? Now, if you came into that very same restaurant with an application that showed you were at a position for 3 years and you performed exceedingly well, they're more apt to give you more money. Now, I know what you're going to say. You're going to say, well, why would they, after working 3 years with impeccable work service, go and apply for another job? More than likely they won't, and you're right. More than likely they took those transferable skills and moved on to something bigger and better. And that's what these industries, the big box stores and the fast food restaurants, are for. They are stepping stones to the next part of their career. And whether they continue that career in that industry or take those skills with them and have gotten a degree in school or a certificate or maybe nothing at all. Maybe with the experience that they garnered with the position they held, they have taken that skill set and are able to apply it to the new position that they've applied for, and rightfully should be paid $15 an hour. But it's insane to me to pay people $15, $16, up to $20 an hour for no skill set. And right now, it's like I said, they have these companies over a barrel because they don't really have a choice. They have to take what they can get at this point, but you're gonna see that go away. And these people who are pushing the issue don't see that. Now, I do agree the cost of living is higher, and it's very tough to make a living and be able to pay your bills on, $7 or $8, $9 an hour. But $11, $12, $13, $14, $15 an hour is well enough to be able to pay your bills. And if it's not, then you're doing something wrong. You're not saving money. You're eating out too much. You're buying things you don't need. You're having children you don't need. And I'm not saying people shouldn't have children. I'm saying plan for it. No, now I understand not everybody plans for children. That's, in a perfect world, everybody would plan for their children and everything would be planned out. They wouldn't have to ever want or beg or borrow for anything, and that's in a perfect world. We don't live in a perfect world. So I'm well aware that people have children without planning for it. However, let's be a little more responsible. There are options out there like birth control and condoms that will keep you from having children, and a combination of the both is over 100%. Let's talk about that for a second. If you don't want to live off of $11 an hour trying to support 2 children, then make better life decisions. No, not everybody does, and I get that, but those people are the ones who continue to say they want to be paid more to do less. And that's the quality of worker, to be honest, that you get now. I touched on this yesterday. So if I set up 20 interviews, and this has happened, okay, this isn't something I made up. If I set up 20 interviews, 5 of them show, at most 5. And if I hire all 5 of those people, one will actually show up. If I hire all 5, do the paperwork, fill out the W-2s and all their tax forms, get pictures of their IDs, submit their cases to the W-2 set, only one of those people show up after being given a schedule and a uniform. Only one. And it's not because it's a poor work environment. It's not because it's a hard job. It's not because the boss is mean and rude. It's because people are lazy. They want something for nothing. They want to show up, get a check, and not actually work for it. And I can tell you that firsthand. I see it every day. And not just in my industry. Everywhere you go. If you look over the last 5 to 7 years, you can't honestly tell me when you go out somewhere the customer service that you receive is almost always poor. Rarely do you see those people who are driven anymore to provide the best customer service possible, regardless of the amount they're being paid an hour. Now it's almost as if you're a burden to that person who's providing you the customer service. I see it all the time. I see it every time I go out somewhere and I purchase something as a consumer. The customer service that you receive is ridiculous. It's not as if these people haven't been trained. They've been trained. And I'm not saying there isn't some gap there between the upper management trying to control all the P&L and then passing that cost down to the manager who manages that specific location, because God knows it is, because the amount of labor cost, the amount of labor cost has risen, and it's around 30% of what a business brings in now versus 10 years ago it was probably half that. Now it's 30% of their revenue goes to labor. So they're trying to find a way and to save money so they could still be profitable and still be open. Because don't forget, people, these companies are in business to make money. They are in business to make money. That is why they started the business. And I think we forget that. And then we go, oh God, they made this huge profit. And I did touch on that in my first episode, that some of these companies did make record profits. They did. They made record profits. But they also paid out record bonuses. They also have raised their wages to an astronomical $14, $15 an hour. And that's with minimum wage, where I'm at, still at $11 an hour. And it's set to go up to $12 an hour in January, and up $1 every year until it hits 15. And you've got Biden trying to push this $15 an hour federal minimum wage. I don't think they realize the repercussions of having that kind of wage for these companies, or even for the federal government. You're going to see an increase in prices across the board. Not that we haven't already, because God knows inflation has gotten insane. But you're going to see more so for that gallon of milk, or for that electronic you want to buy little Joey for Christmas, or for that dress you want to buy Pam for her first prom. I don't think that people realize what they're truly doing with this push for minimum wage. Again, I'll repeat, minimum wage is for a minimum skill set. I mean, if you had more than a minimum skill set, you more than likely wouldn't be applying for that position anyway. But to continue with that, and to continue to push it up again, I ask again, where does it stop? Is the next wage be $20 an hour? Then what? $25 an hour? I know people who make $20 to $25 an hour, and they're looking at these people who are being hired at $14, $15 an hour, and they're shaking their head going, wait a minute. I have a skill set. I've worked my butt off for the last 15, 20 years to get where I'm at, and now these people make $4 to $5 less an hour than me, and that's it? Yes, there was a big gap there before, because the person who was the general manager or the main manager of that big box store or of that restaurant had that skill set, that they put in that labor. They started from the bottom and worked their way up, and now you're saying, well, these people that have no skill set are going to come in and only make $4 or $5 less an hour than you. So what you're going to see, again, I'll go back to that, is you're going to see more automation going into these places, into the drive-thrus with touch screens, touchscreen kiosks that are weatherproof. Um, Touchscreen kiosks out in the lobbies, you already see it. The self-checkouts, you're going to see more and more and more of that until it gets to a point where you have, maybe, one or two people working in a restaurant at any one time. Maybe three people. Somebody to manage the money and somebody to ensure that the flow of food is coming out from the automation correctly. I could see that in the near future, that even places in the restaurants, some of the stations are automated to cook burgers, to cook them and send them down the line. I don't know that it would be a conveyor belt or anything like that. I'm not thinking about the Jetsons here, for God's sakes, but if you can use your imagination, if we can do things with automated driving cars, why can't we do it with burgers or with fries or with sacking food or taking orders like we already are doing? You're going to see more and more of this. So I'm going to leave that off there. We're going to move on to the next story. So moving on to the next story, we're going to touch a little bit on President Joe Biden, everybody's president, everybody's favorite president, I should say. This guy, I'm not even sure I understand why anybody voted for him. I'm not going to get into the conspiracy theory about whether the election was rigged or whatnot. I think we're past that point. But this guy just doesn't talk at all to the media, and how he gets away with it is beyond me. I'm not sure I understand. But there's a story about him today where he just turned his back on the press. Last Friday after addressing the poor September jobs report. And I don't know if he's scared or, I'll tell you what it looks like. It just looks like he's a puppet. They write everything down for him. He only gets to use a teleprompter. He's only allowed to take certain questions, if any at all, because he literally, when he's done talking, buddy, he turns his back and he's out of there. He doesn't waste any time. But he was addressing the shaky status of the U.S. supply chain, and he announced that the Port of Los Angeles will begin to operate 24/7 in order to handle more goods, obviously amid the growing backlogs of stuff. And then he exited the stage. He and you could hear the reporters screaming questions at him, and he just ignored him. He didn't answer anything, and I don't know if it's his handlers won't let him. And it's like the guy is a monkey from a cage. Like he's got these handlers that kind of shoo him along to get him hurry up and get him back stuck. Joe Monkey Biden. We're going to keep him in a cage because if we let him out, my legs. The little baby, the guy doesn't have a clue of what he's talking about. So Joe the Monkey Biden and his handlers won't allow him to answer questions, turns his back on the media, always confused. I'm just not even sure how people voted for him. Even looking back prior to him being elected, he hid in his basement. I'm unsure whether people just voted for him because there was that much hatred towards Trump, or whether they believed he was really going to make some kind of change. But to think his cognitive ability is there would imply that he's not sick, and that's not the case. If you watch him, the man's lost. Every time you put him in front of a prompter, he can't even read the words on the prompter right. Today he messed up some people's names, and then he's like, "Oh, I'm sorry." The guy just sounds lost. He address the supply issue with scripted remarks, left without taking not just one question, and his handlers simply won't allow it, and it speaks volumes. He doesn't have the confidence in his own arguments not to override them. I mean, why we continue to let this go on is beyond. But no, it's not really, because I realize, which I don't know if most Americans do or not, I'm sure a majority do, but if we impeach him, your next best person to take his place is Kamala Harris. And that, I would almost say, is a step down. I mean, he hasn't created it. His job reports alone have been dismal. I mean, if you look at over the past week, we looked at the September jobs report, and it came in well below expectations. They only increased, like non-farm payroll increased 194,000 workers, as the unemployment rate fell to 4.8. But economists were expecting 500,000 new jobs, and the unemployment rate slipped to 5.1, and the inflation rate, it's as high as it's ever been in like the last 13 years. I mean, I'm not sure where this is going, but he didn't even answer any questions about Afghanistan and just left the podium when that happened. There's a trend here. He's just not cut out to do the job, and the sad thing is Kamala Harris is who would take his place, and if she didn't, then it'd be Nancy Pelosi. I mean, you've got Joe the Monkey Biden, you've got the laughing hyena Kamala Harris, and then you got the sneaky snake after her. I mean, it's there's no real good end to that either way. And so the thing is, and we're talking a long way off, but he's not even a year into his presidency, and things are dismal at best. I mean, jobs are not up where they're supposed to be. He hasn't met what he wanted. His numbers haven't been met that he wanted to have as far as people with the vaccine. I mean, what point do we say he's the president of the United States? Why does he have to listen to his handlers and not? Why doesn't he just take the questions? Why doesn't he stand there like a true president, take the heat? And I can tell you why. He should have never been president in the first place. And if you believe he should have, then you're a long way off about what America stands for. I don't know that we've ever had a president in the history of the United States who's refused to take questions. And this man literally just don't take questions. And it's as if his little group of people just rushes him off the stage, his handlers, and come on, Joe, let's go get you a diaper and an ice cream. And then we'll put you back in the kitchen. It reminds me of the monkey that Michael Jackson had that wore a diaper and ate ice cream, and he walked him around like a person. I mean, it's just insane. It's insane to me. I mean, the CNN commentator Van Jones, he faced the wrath of liberals for negative remarks about the state of the Biden administration. and he's right. He and I'm quoting him. He said, "Right now the honeymoon's over," and he's right. Um, the headlines are overwhelmingly negative, um, especially following the poor jobs report, a 13-year high inflation rate, um, and obviously his declining average approval rate. You know, um, and then also you're talking about his controversial Build Back Better plan. Um, it stalled. It stalled among fierce infighting in the Democratic Party. So not even his own party can no longer agree that his plan is good, that he's good for the party. Um, he's just he's not cut out. And I don't understand how other Americans, as Americans, don't see this. How they can continually watch this cringeworthy president when he gets on TV. It's almost, you cringe when he speaks because you know he's going to gaff something up, and not purposely. He just, I don't know. I think mentally he's not there. I think he's obviously the wrong man for the job. I wouldn't be surprised if he hits the all-time low approval rating for any president ever. And I would venture to say that that could really happen. Let me take a look here. So it looks like he may already be there. Well, he's close. He's not there, but he's close. So F.D. Roosevelt actually holds that, coming in at 32. Oh, no, excuse me. He was the 32nd president. 34, 25. So, looks like G.W. Bush holds that. Nope. Nixon. I should have known. Good old Nixon. Nope, Truman. So, Truman holds the all-time lowest at 22%. I could see him reaching that. He's not even been in office a full year, and he's already at like 38% or even less now, continually to decline week after week. With and I think it matches his mental ability that's also in decline. So it's like they're both declining hand in hand week after week. I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see this guy not president in 6 months. I don't know that you can continually cause a train wreck weekly and still hold office at some point. And now even your own party's turning on you. So you have the GOP wants nothing to do with them, and now the Democrats are getting on the same page. They're like, wait a minute, this guy's way off base. And they talked about how Trump was out of his mind. Trump said and did a lot of things that weren't presidential with Twitter. And I don't know that they weren't presidential. Here's the thing. President Trump was not your average president. In looking at politics as a whole, he wasn't your normal politician because he was never a politician. He was always a businessman. And he did a lot of good things, creating jobs and these tariffs on countries who are just making a killing off of us. He did all these things, and it made the left so mad that the only thing they could do is just down him constantly. From the day he got elected, and I remember it, from the day he got elected, they immediately started impeachment findings. It was like that his whole presidency. I'd never in my life seen a president attacked as much as he was. Not that I've seen a lot of presidents, but I've been alive long enough that I've been through a few presidents, and I've never seen anything of it. And then Biden comes along, and he's some golden boy that hides in his basement, and then he comes out of his basement to be the president, and he's a monkey coming from a cage. Come on, Joe, we're going to get you out today and let you see the public. It's like he's a sideshow for a circus. We're going to get you out today, Joe, and we're going to let you talk to people. But you can only say what's on the prompter. You can only say what we write down for you, and you can't take any questions. Just walk away, little monkey Joe, walk away. He would be a good mascot. I think there's a kid's place that's called Monkey Joe's, and I think he would fit right in there pretty well. So just, touching base with that, I'm appalled at the job he does. He tends to step on a rake every time he walks around. It's just amazing to me. So that's going to be the end of tonight's podcast. Leave any comments below about what you'd like to hear about next. We'll continue on touching on daily news every day. We will usually have it posted by 9 or 10 p.m. so you can listen. Give that button a smash and a like, and subscribe. Have a good night.